Okay, hello everyone. How's it going? This is Immigration Attorney Momita. I'm coming to you live. I hope everyone has had a wonderful day and I hope that you're all doing well. I'm here to discuss immigration and try to answer some of your tough immigration questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Momita Rahman. I am an immigration lawyer. I am based in New York and I work on immigration cases and with clients all over the US and also in various parts of the world. And it's my pleasure to talk to you about immigration because it is an extremely complex area of law. And there is a lot of misinformation out there. There are a lot of questions and people are looking for guidance. So what I hope to do is I hope to be able to help you understand the immigration process, understand what may be possible and what may not be possible. So today, and Ramadan Kareem, Ramadan Mubarak to any of my followers out there who are observing and celebrating. May you have a month full of blessings. So thank you for watching. Okay, so, and please feel free to put down your question in the comment section. I will try to answer as many questions as I can. And, definitely make sure you also write down my phone number, 212-248-7907. If you do have a need for consultation, then that's what I'm here for. And also, don't forget to follow me on all of my social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And in fact, I'm live streaming to all 4 of these platforms right now. Okay, so a question that I got from several people today is, I am a US citizen, I'm 21 years old, and I want to help my mom and my dad get their papers fixed. And this is a very important topic because, our moms and dads, they raise us, they've either been here in the US for a long time or they've been outside the US trying their best to support us. So what are the ways that you can help your mother or your father if they've been here, they have a legal entry and they're looking to get their papers fixed? So number 1, you have to be at least 21 years old to help your parents fix their papers. And if they have a legal entry into the US, and what this really means is that they entered with inspection and admission, then you may be eligible to do the adjustment of status process. Now, what is an inspection and admission? An inspection and admission is when you present yourself to a customs or border official and they have the opportunity to ask you questions and they let you in. What happens if your mom or dad are crossing on the land border and they present some documents to the officer and they don't get asked any questions, but they get let in? Is that an inspection and admission? Yes, that would most likely qualify as an inspection and admission. For the most part, you do need to have some proof of this inspection and admission, and typically this is via a stamp in your passport. If you don't have the stamp in your passport, this is a good time to talk to an attorney to talk about what are the ways that you can prove that you were waived into the US. That is technically what it is called when you have the opportunity to be inspected by an officer and they let you in without really asking you any questions or without really inspecting your documents. For example, if you're in the car with someone and they let all the people in the car through without really asking any questions because the front person presents a US passport, there may be some issues in that. Definitely, it's very, very important to talk to an attorney who understands how to screen for any potential problems, okay? Now, what if your mom or dad do not have a legal entry into the US? Can you still help them get their papers fixed? And this is this is actually a different question, because if a person does not have their legal entry or an inspection into the US, then we have to look at the various sorts of ways to help them get their papers fixed. And there are a few different ways that you may still be able to help them. Number 1, does your mom or dad, did they ever have a family member apply for them, or maybe an employer tried to petition for them a long time ago? And by this date, we're looking at a date sometime in early 2001 or before. If they may have had somebody in the past try to petition for them, then that may be a way to basically reset that illegal entry into something that they could then basically be forgiven with that old application. This is called Section 245I. Another way is if you yourself are in the military or you're a veteran. If you are in the military, you're in active duty, or you are maybe even in reserves, or you're a veteran with an honorable discharge, then you may be able to help your parents request something called military parole in place. And what this does is that it will essentially reset that illegal entry as though it never happened, and basically they'll be considered as having entered lawfully so that you can then continue on with that adjustment of status process. But What happens if you're not in the military? Or what happens if your parents have more issues than just having one illegal entry? For example, what if your mom or your dad has something called a permanent bar? Well, the military parole in place may not help them. However, what I do is I look to see if my clients are eligible for any other type of humanitarian visa application that might help them waive the permanent bar or at least get some sort of protection in the US. And the main case types that I would look at for them are something called VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act, and underneath this provision, if they have a child who's at least 21 years old who has treated them very badly, then we may be able to help petition for them to get a green card on their own and possibly even get the permanent bar fixed. It's not a one size, it doesn't fit every sort of case. That's why it's important to talk to the mom and dad to see what their experience has been. The second is, has your mom or dad ever been the victim of a crime? If they have ever been the victim of a crime, then they may be eligible to apply for something called a U visa. And what is really important to note is that the U visa it's not for every sort of crime. They have to be a little bit more serious and they have to be considered a qualifying crime. The other thing is that if you are going to apply for a U visa, it's important to note that these applications are taking a very, very long time. At the current moment, U visas are taking about 10 years or more. But it is still a solution, and it is still a good solution for people who do not have any other option. Now, the third thing that I would look at is something called a T visa. A T visa is a visa for labor trafficking or sex trafficking. Majority of people will usually fall into the labor trafficking role. And what this really means is that have they ever been in a work situation where they were forced to work, their immigration status was used against them to keep them in that employment or to do other things? Sometimes some of these jobs, people will not be paid properly. People will not be paid for all the hours that they work. They'll never receive overtime, but really there has to be an element of coercion or fraud, okay? And another thing is are they eligible for asylum? This is the fourth thing that I would look at. Are they eligible for asylum? Are they afraid to go back to their home country? Has something happened recently to their family or to them that they know about that would basically create a new sort of fear for them to go back, okay? So there are actually several different things that can be looked at if your parents do not have a legal entry. It's very important for each case to get a deep analysis to go into each of the factors and to see what they're eligible for, okay? Now, what happens if your mom or dad are outside the US? Now, this is also going to be something different because if they're outside the US, then you may be eligible to petition for them to come back through something called a consular processing. However, this will also depend on whether they are subject to any sorts of bars, including the permanent bar. Now, the permanent bar is something that occurs when a person has been in the US for more than 1 year after April 1st, 97, and then they depart the US and they come back without entry and inspection, or they have a removal order and then they try to come back without entry and inspection. Then if any of these two things happen, then the permanent bar is triggered. And really, if they're already outside the US, there's not really much of a way to come back, and they would not be able to come back for 10 years. But if they don't have the permanent bar, then we would need to look to see if they're eligible for any sort of waiver for unlawful presence, in addition to other permissions and consents to come back. Okay, so now I'm going to answer some questions. And one more thing. Another question that I got today is, if I divorce my US citizen spouse, will I get deported? And the answer to this is very complex. So if you are married to a U.S. citizen or even to a green card holder, and you're undocumented, you're looking to do the process through them because you need to get your status stabilized and fixed, but things are not going well in your marriage. Your spouse is not treating you well. Your spouse might be treating you in ways that you never thought that you would ever have to live through. But now you're wondering that, if I get divorced, does that mean that I'm going to get deported? Or maybe even your spouse has said, I'm going to get you deported because I can. I'm going to call the police on you, or maybe they have already called the police on you, or they have threatened you with immigration, right? Or they have even started the application to help you with your status, whether it's for a green card or for a waiver, and now they're threatening to withdraw that application. What are the consequences to you? So number one, if you are going through these situations, you really have to talk to a lawyer as soon as you can, because you as the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you may be eligible to petition on your own for your own green card. Now, this is called the self-petition process, and it is based upon something that I would call marriage problems. But more than that, you have to look to see whether your spouse is trying to control you in different ways. And every case is going to be different. It's going to need to rise to a certain level, but that is my job to help you see what is there, okay? You are going through the situation, your spouse is threatening to withdraw your application, they threaten to call the police on you, they threaten to call immigration on you, or maybe even they keep giving you the runaround. They, at the beginning of your marriage, you both knew that they needed to help you with your papers because one person is a citizen and the other is not, and it's very hard to have a life here in the US together when one person is without status. But you get married and they keep kind of delaying, they keep saying, no, maybe we'll do it next year and all of that. To me, that's a trouble sign. So you should definitely give me a call, 212-248-7907. Okay, all right, I've got lots of questions today. So let's see, I'm gonna take some questions first from Instagram. All right. So Urbino Ricio is saying, many time processing the I-130, processing time in Texas, but we're already at 7 months. So this is actually something that I went over with a client today who was very confused about the processing time for their I-130. And they were under the impression that it should take less time than not. Now, if you file an I-130, then the normal processing time can be anywhere from 6 months to 12 months. But if you file your I-130 together with your I-485 application, then what you have to do is you need to look up the processing time for the I-130, because when you file these two applications concurrently, then the whole processing time is actually controlled by the I-485 time. And that is going to be determined by your local field office, okay? So I recommend that you look at that. Okay, Nails by Nai is asking, my grandparents' passports are expired and they're stuck in Mexico. What can they do? All right, Nails by Nai, thank you very much for your question. So if they are US passport holders and they left and they're in Mexico right now, or for that matter, if they're in any other country right now, if their passport has expired, they need to get their passport renewed. Now, as a US citizen, they have the right to request an appointment and to get their passport renewed at the consulate. The consular situation is very, very hard because not every consulate is operating at the normal levels. They may not have appointments available, but make sure you reach out to the consulate. Now, if they have a foreign passport and they're a green card holder, they definitely need to make sure that their foreign passport is also renewed before they'll be allowed back in. So I would recommend that they reach out to the consulate or the passport services in the country that they're in, okay? I hope that helps, and hello to everyone who's here. Teresa, Romina, hi. Okay, so let's see what other questions I have. So I have a question from Rosin Marson who's asking, my friend made a mistake with the DOB on a fiancé visa application. How can she correct it? He's awaiting his interview. Okay, Rosin, thank you for the question. Now, for those of you who have filed applications on your own, or maybe even somebody else prepared the application for you and you notice a little bit later that there's a mistake. There's a mistake in the date of birth that is actually very serious, and you do need to make whatever attempt you can to correct it. But also you want to be careful because some questions will be asked as to how this mistake could have been made. Was it done on purpose? Were you trying to fudge the birth dates? Hopefully that is not the case. If it's a true and honest mistake, the best course of action is to try to do whatever you can to notify either USCIS or the consulate of the mistake that's been made and try to update them. And sometimes if you have filed a DS-160 or DS-260, you can even contact them to try to reopen it. But you can also give us a call. I'd be happy to take a look to see, to talk to you about the best way to help update that information and correct it, okay? I have a question from David Silva who's asking, when is the travel ban from the Schengen area due? Are there any updates? Okay, David, thank you very much for your question. So as of right now, I believe that the ban from the Schengen area, the travel from the Schengen area countries is still in effect. If you have been in a Schengen area country, if you're not a citizen or a green card holder or the spouse of one of them, then you would basically need to show that you were not there for at least 14 days. It's still in effect. My guess is that with the COVID-19 infection rates increasing again in multiple countries, this is going to remain in place, okay? There's no update for that. But if there is, just make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel because I am releasing some very, very important videos regarding these current issues make sure you subscribe to my YouTube page so you can stay notified of all this important news, okay? Okay, let's see what else I have. So Saif Chowdhury is asking, hello, I'm a permanent resident. My case is documentarily approved since 2020, September. Do I need another I-864 for the current year, or is it definitely valid? Please answer, thank you. Okay, thank you for your question. So the NVC did have a meeting and they answered some questions, and they said that if your documents were accepted and you were documentarily qualified as of a certain date, even if it's, they're technically kind of, it's been a long time since they were accepted, they should not be asking for new updated documents. However, my feeling is that if you can update your documents, bring with you. There's no harm. It's a little bit of extra effort, but it's better to be safe than sorry, because what if the consular officer does ask you for updated I-864s or updated police clearances and all of this stuff? Make sure you bring updated things with you just in case, but also make sure to bring with you the actual documents that you submitted copies of to the consulates, because one important information that a lot of people don't always know is that whatever photocopy of document that you send to NVC, you have to make sure you bring that exact original with you to the interview, even if it's considered expired, okay? Okay, Silver Rover, hello, I'm an immigrant. I've lived here for 3 years. I lost my wife last year. Am I still eligible to file for citizenship? Okay, Silver, I'm very, very sorry to hear about the loss of your wife. Now, if you were married to a US citizen and they passed away, are you still eligible to apply for a green card and to get your citizenship? So here's the deal. If your US citizen spouse passed away, then you, depends on two things. Number one, did they already file an I-130 for you, and did you already start that process? If your US citizen spouse passes away during the time that your application is pending, then what would happen is that I-130 would technically convert automatically to an I-360, all right? But what happens if you never filed the I-360, the I-130? What if your spouse never started that process? Definitely give us a call, because a lot of things will go into this. Number one is you may be eligible to file for a widower application. Number two, if you're not eligible to do that, then we would look to see if there were some other issues in your marriage, meaning why, that pertain to why your spouse never helped you file in the first place, okay? So Silver, give us a call, 212-248-7907. Okay. All right, so Alma Maldonado is asking, any news about F4 visa category? My brother's application is over 12 years old. Okay, so Alma, thank you very much for your question. So for those of you who are applying through siblings, the sibling category is probably one of the longest time consuming processes that is out there, especially when your sibling is outside the US. Normally, sibling cases are taking approximately 15 years. And if you're from other countries such as Mexico, then it's even longer. I think it's almost 20 years if you're from Mexico. So you have to look at the visa bulletin to see what the priority date is. All you have to do is Google visa bulletin to pull up the latest month's visa bulletin. And if you take a look in the chart, you will see the breakdown as to what date of application they're actually processing at the moment. And you can guesstimate from there how long you might have to wait. Okay, let's see what else I have. And thank you again to everyone who's watching and asking questions. Okay, Perla Saliba is saying, Ramadan Mubarak, I'm an immigrant nurse applying for a work permit and EB3 green card. My sponsor applied for me in November, but I still don't have my work permit as a nurse in a pandemic. Okay, so Perla, thank you for your question. So for any of you who are applying for employment-based green cards, first step is always that your employer has to start it and they have to file an I-130. Normally, they have to file an I-140. The I-140 can only be filed once the labor certification is complete and done, and then you can file the I-140 within 6 months. However, it's not the same as filing a green card application. The green card application is actually a separate application called the I-485. And you can only file the I-485 if your category is current, especially depending on the country that you're born in. Now, for EB3, I believe that's been current for the past month. A lot of the numbers became current about 1 or 2 months ago. So at that point is when you would be eligible to file for your I-485. So Perla, if you have already filed your I-485, then you're eligible to also file your work permit application. Now, the bad news is that for the most part, work permits are taking about 6 to 8 months to be processed. If you don't have it yet, what I would recommend, especially since you're a nurse working during the pandemic, is I would recommend that you submit an expedite request because you're a frontline worker and you need that work permit, right? You need to have it so to be able to serve the US population. That's what I recommend, Perla, okay? Give us a call if you need assistance with that case. Okay. So Cable is asking, what's the fee for your legal help? So fees are going to depend. Each case is different. I have to evaluate each case after a consultation to see what I need to do, how long it might take, and what the potential complications are. Now, the consultation fee, however, is $150, and that is evenly applied to every single person who requires my help. And the purpose of this fee is so that I can sit down with you either by phone or by video and ask you a specific set of questions so I can determine what your needs are, what your issues are, and the best way forward. And if there's no solution that I can find to help you immediately, what we like to do is I like to figure out a strategy for the future for you, okay? Okay. And thank you for that, Kibo. Okay. So I have a question from Anavea, who's asking, it's been 2.5 months. I've been waiting for my biometrics appointment for my initial EAD through Asylum, and it is so stressful. Is there any way that I can speed up my biometrics appointment? Okay, Anavea, thank you very much for your question. So I actually have some good news for my asylees out there. Have you guys heard of the organizations CASA or ASAP? ASAP stands for the Asylum Seekers Advocacy Program, and CASA, I actually don't remember what that means. But there was a case that was decided. It's basically a class action lawsuit filed by these two organizations, basically trying to force some sort of progress on asylee applications. Now, if you enroll yourself into these organizations, then you may be able to request that they speed up the processing of your asylum application to go back to the 30 days that they're required to approve asylum work permits under. So I would recommend that you join these organizations and give us a call so we can try to help speed up your process, okay? 212-248-7907. Okay, Nalini is, let's see, actually, let's answer this. I think I answered this before from Sal. Any update on the immediate relative or conditional resident visa interview scheduling for spouse of US citizens at Islamabad Embassy? That was documentarily qualified in January 2020. Priority date is March 2018. Okay, so I'm going to be releasing a video very soon here on YouTube regarding some updates from the consulates. However, what I can tell you is that Islamabad has actually been conducting interviews, and they have been largely open. I've even had a couple of interviews at the Islamabad consulate, and they've been expedited. So if you got documentarily qualified in January, they have basically been working in a chronological order based on what date your documents were basically considered complete. So if your documents were considered qualified and complete as of January, I'm suspecting that you're probably going to have to wait at least another 5 or 6 months unless you can get an expedite request approved. Okay, I hope that helps. All right, I'd love to see who's observing Ramadan if anyone wants to drop a comment, and I would love to know what your favorite Ramadan traditions are. Okay, so Ian Eunice is asking, hi, I want to bring my sister from Australia, but she is an Australian citizen. Can I bring her to the US? So for those of you who are a US citizen, you are eligible to submit I-130 applications for your brother or sister. However, the bad news is that your sibling has to wait for a visa to become available. And as of right now, the wait time for visas for brothers or sisters are approximately 15 to 20 years because it's a very oversubscribed category. So you can definitely try to bring your sister here. It's just going to take a very, very long time. And this is something that everyone should know, because if you, especially, let's say your brother or sister is here in the US, if you want to help apply for them, you also have to make sure that they remain in a current status. Otherwise, they will not be eligible to do adjustment of status in the future once their visa becomes current. Or if they end up staying here for a very long time and they depart the US to leave, they may be ineligible to come back because they may have an unlawful presence bar of 3 or 10 years, and they would need a waiver for that. Okay, and thank you for your question. So Amy Singh is asking when courts are open. Courts are open on a case-by-case basis. You have to look at the operational status page of EOIR because not every court is open. So I can't quite answer that question. All right, Crystal Argueta is asking how to apply for the K1 fiance visa. All right, K1 fiance visa is such a great visa, but it's actually a little bit more complicated than people think. And it's a good option for many people, but for some other people, the immigrant visa might be a better option. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone who's trying to understand the differences and the pros and the cons. But anyway, to apply for the K1 visa, you first have to submit the form I-129F. And this is the K1, basically the application to help register your foreign fiance as a K1 applicant. Once this is approved, your K1 fiance visa application will have a validity period of 120 days. And usually you need to make sure that your fiance goes to their consulate for an interview during this time period before the application expires. Assuming they get their visa interview done for the K1, they get their K1 stamp in the passport, they come to the US, they have to then marry you within 90 days of entering the US, and then you guys will be free to start the green card process, okay? If you need my help on this, give us a call, 212-248-7907. Okay, I have a question. I'm gonna answer 2 last questions, guys, okay? All right, so I have a question from Yes448 who's asking, hi, is it possible for someone that has drug charges to be able to fight his case outside prison? Okay, so if you have a drug charge and you're an immigrant, this is a particularly serious thing. What everyone should understand is that for the most part, unless your conviction happened while you are a green card holder, you may not be able to get a drug charge waived unless that drug charge was one simple possession of marijuana of 30 grams of less than 30 grams. If you have anything else, then you may actually become forever ineligible to apply for a green card or to do anything else. And what I recommend to a lot of people with serious drug charges is to try to get that conviction vacated due to various factors, because if you have certain drug convictions, it actually makes life extremely difficult. You may not be able to do anything further. But what I would recommend is that if you do have a drug charge, give me a call and make sure you have the documents of your conviction record handy so I can analyze everything, okay? All right, and good luck. And yes, you can fight it while you're outside of court, but it's a little bit more difficult. Okay, so the last question that I'm gonna answer, okay, I'm gonna answer 2 more questions, guys. All right, so so next question is, if I join the military, do my parents get a green card without leaving the country for 10 years? Yes. Okay, it's a very good question. It's actually something that I discussed earlier. So if your parents did not enter legally, but you are in the military or you are honorably discharged from the military, can you help your parents get a green card? And the answer is yes, you may be able to help them by applying for something called Military Parole in Place. What Military Parole in Place does is it essentially resets that illegal entry that your parents have, and it basically converts it kind of into like a lawful admission, for example, so that your parents are then eligible to do the green card process here in the US without them having to leave. But the important thing to note is this: Military Parole in Place will not help somebody who has multiple illegal entries and exits because then they may have an issue called a permanent bar, and Military Parole in Place does not fix that. Number 2 is if your parents have any sort of serious, like arrests and convictions, that may also be something that Military Parole in Place cannot help them with, because they do need to be able to basically prove that they deserve a favorable grant of discretionary grant, okay? But definitely give us a call if this is something that you're looking at so that we can help you through the process, okay? Okay, so Nails by Nai is asking, I'm married to a US citizen and I have DACA. Is it easier to file for a green card? Okay, So for my DACA applicants, if you have DACA, one thing that I would recommend is that you try to do something called advanced parole. Advanced parole will basically help you leave the country and come back without triggering the unlawful presence bar, so that then you have that stamp in your passport and you can apply for a green card with that. Now, advanced parole for DACA applicants is taking a very long time. I'm guessing it's taking anywhere from 5 to 8 months. And yes, you still would need to depart the US on your advanced parole to fulfill the reason that you requested advanced parole for, and then come back. It's a good option for those who qualify and for those who have DACA. Now, if you do not have advanced parole, if you can't get it, you may still be eligible for a different type of process where you apply for a self-petition where your spouse has not, you've had some marital problems and your spouse has not treated you well, okay? This is called self-petition and you may be eligible for it. And if you are eligible and you do this, then you would also not need to leave the US for your green card interview, okay? All right, everyone, so that's it. I hope everyone enjoyed this. Please make sure to share my videos with those of your friends and family who you think would benefit, and make sure to subscribe to all of my social media pages. I love to see all of my followers. It makes me really happy to be able to spread immigration news and information. And I'll see you next time. Don't forget to call me if you need my assistance on your case. All right.